Hello, welcome to this week's lesson. I'm Brian Vermeer, and first of all, thank you all for your prayers. My doctors have changed my medicine. I'm feeling a whole lot better now, so hopefully I can get back to making sure this is up every week. We're continuing our series on faith, and we're talking about today about a man who had so great faith that Jesus said this man has more faith than any other person in Israel. And we're going to be in Luke chapter 7. We're, of course, talking about Jesus healing the servant of the Roman Centurion. Now, before we get into this, let's talk just a little bit. What is a centurion? You hear centurions mentioned quite a bit in the Bible, at least in the New Testament. A centurion was a Roman soldier who was in charge of a unit of 100 men. Now, in today's U.S. Army, that would be kind of like in between the size of a platoon and a company. So a centurion today would be similar to a U.S. Army captain. That's about the easiest way to put it. And this centurion lived in the city of Capernaum, which is on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And unlike most Roman soldiers, this one was well liked by the people of the town. His job in the town was probably simply to oversee a group of, again, 100 soldiers, thereabouts, whose jobs it was most likely just to patrol around the town and the surrounding area, probably just to keep the peace. And the Jews, in most cases, did not like these Roman soldiers because they would pry into the Jewish people's business. They knew they had authority to do whatever they wanted and could get away with it. So the Jewish people normally didn't like, the Romans. But in this case, it says this particular centurion had used his own money to build a new synagogue for the Jewish people in that town. So they really liked him. He got along well with the Jewish people in this town. So let's go ahead and look at Luke chapter 7, and we'll start with verses 1 to 5. It says, "When he had concluded saying all this to the people who were listening, he entered Capernaum. A centurion's servant, who was highly valued by him, was sick and about to die. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to him, requesting him to come and save the life of his servant. When they reached Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, 'He is worthy for you to grant this, because he loves our nation and has built us a synagogue.'" So this first verse 1, it says, "When he had concluded saying all this." Well, what's all this that he had just concluded saying? This is the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus has just finished giving the Sermon on the Mount, which was a talk that, if you read carefully, you see Jesus actually intended just for his disciples. But many other people came up and listened to him as well. And this is what gained Jesus great fame for being a teacher. It says, he taught the scriptures clearly, not like the scribes or the Pharisees. The Sermon on the Mount, if you've never read it, you need to be sure and read the whole thing. It's Jesus' instructions for living a Christian life. It's a sermon intended for Christians, and it simply tells us how we are to behave, how we are to live. But Jesus now has finished this talk. This is also right after he has called the 12 disciples. The purpose of the Sermon on the Mount was to give this teaching to his 12 disciples. And now he has come down from the mountain and he has entered the city of Capernaum. And it says there was a centurion there who has a servant. And his servant may have been a Roman, may have been Jewish. We're not really sure. It just says he was highly valued by him. So this was probably one of his chief servants. This was one who did his job very well. Someone that the centurion probably loved. Someone that he, was his favorite, servant. But it says he was sick and about to die. So whatever he was sick with was killing him, and they knew that he was about to die. They knew it was about to kill him. It says he heard about Jesus, and he sent some Jewish elders to Jesus. Well, why would he send Jewish elders to Jesus rather than come himself? Well, he's going to explain in a minute why he didn't come himself. But why send Jewish elders? First of all, because Romans to the Jewish people were considered unclean since they were Gentiles. So for Jesus to be talking to a Roman soldier, first of all, could tarnish Jesus' reputation. If people had seen Jesus talking to a Roman, this could make some of the Jewish people, even if they, especially if they didn't know what they were talking about, this could make them think that Jesus was consorting with the Romans, that Jesus was colluding with them, was planning something with them. And that could hurt Jesus' reputation in the eyes of the Jewish people. And the Roman centurion knew this. So instead of sending Roman soldiers to ask Jesus, which also would possibly have frightened the disciples, seeing Roman soldiers coming to talk to them, instead he sends Jewish elders. The Jewish people, of course, Jesus would have no problem talking with, the Jewish people. He probably thought Jesus would be more accepting if the Jewish people came to him. And also, by sending the Jewish elders, again, this shows the relationship that this centurion had with the Jewish people in this town. The Jewish people in this town liked this centurion. He wasn't like most other Roman soldiers. He was sympathetic toward the Jews. He understood the Jewish people. He did his job, but he didn't oppress the Jewish people like a lot of them did. So the Jewish elders were friends with him. They got along with him. So by sending the Jewish elders, this is a way of showing that, Jesus is not being ordered by the Roman to come see him. This is a request on behalf not just of the centurion, but also of the Jewish people. The Jewish people wanted this centurion servant to be healed as well. So they may have thought that Jesus would be more sympathetic if Jewish people came to see him rather than if the Roman came himself. So that's possibly why he sent them. It says he had heard about Jesus. He'd probably heard of some of the healings that Jesus had done, and he knew that Jesus could heal people. And again, we're going to see that later on. This soldier knew Jesus could heal his servant. So he sent the Jewish elders requesting Jesus to come and save the life of his servant. So he's saying, come to my house, or the Jewish elders are saying, come to the centurion's house and, heal this man's servant so that he can live. And they're letting him know, he says, he is worthy for you to do this. They're trying to convince Jesus. Jesus, of course, I don't think would have needed convincing. I think he would have gone anyway. But they're just telling him that, this centurion is a good man. He deserves this. He's done a lot of things for us. He's built a synagogue for our town. He's built a place of worship for the Jewish people, even though he doesn't worship God himself. So, please come help this man. We like this guy. We don't want him to get mad at us because, we've been getting along so far, really well. So, the Jewish people are pleading with Jesus to come and heal the servant. Let's continue on now and look at verses 6 through 8. It says, Jesus went with them, and when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to tell him, Lord, don't trouble yourself, since I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof. That is why I didn't even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man placed under authority, having soldiers under my command. I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. So Jesus starts going toward the centurion's house. But before he gets to the house, it says he's not too far from it, but he doesn't get all the way to the house. The centurion sends some friends. It doesn't say whether these are Jewish or Roman, but he sends some friends to go to Jesus and tell him, don't come all the way. Don't bother yourself coming all the way to my house. Now, why would he say this? First of all, again, he was a Roman. Entering a Roman's house would be considered unclean. Jesus would have to go through purification rituals after he entered a Roman's house. So he's trying to save Jesus the trouble of doing that. The centurion apparently understands this. Secondly, again, it could be seen as, hurting Jesus' reputation. We already know Jesus had a reputation among the scribes and Pharisees because he would go to the house of tax collectors or of people who were known to be sinners. So going into a Roman's house would really give the Pharisees and the scribes something to complain about. It would really give them some bait that they could use to turn the people against Jesus. This is a man who is even friendly with the Romans. He goes to their house, hoping that would turn the people against Jesus. So he says, don't come to my house. And then we're going to see, down below here, he mentions a third reason. He says, I'm not worthy to have you come to my house. I recognize that you are a great teacher of Israel. Now, we don't know whether this centurion believed in God or not. It's possible that he did. It's possible that while he was living in Israel, he was converted to the Jewish religion. But he does recognize at least that Jesus is a prophet of his God. Again, the Romans believed in many gods, so they had no problem believing in the Jewish God. They would just put him alongside of all the other gods on Olympus. But he recognizes that Jesus is a great prophet of this God. He says, you're a great religious man. I'm not worthy. Probably in the case of, I don't even believe in your God, so I'm not worthy to have you come to my house. That would be beneath you. That would be something that you don't need to do. He says, that's why I didn't even consider myself worthy to come see you myself. Because you are such a great man and I am not. And he's recognizing his place before God is what he's doing. We need to recognize our place before God. Is Jesus worthy to come into your house? If Jesus showed up at your front door, would you invite him in? And we like to think, oh yes, I'm a really good Christian. I'd let Jesus into my house. But if Jesus comes into my house, he's going to learn a lot of things about me. People who come to my house, they see my home decor. They see the books on my shelf. They see, the DVDs on my rack. They see the kind of person that I am. Do you really want Jesus knowing that much about you? Would you really think that you're worthy to have Jesus, who is God incarnate, come into your home? I'm not sure I would want Jesus to come into my house. Which means I need to get my house in order. Do you want Jesus knowing that much about you? Because I'll give you a hint. He already does. Jesus knows what you do in your home. Jesus knows what you do in private. So I'll just say, if there's anything in your home, if there's anything in your life that you don't want Jesus to know about, you'd better go ahead and get rid of it, because Jesus already knows. So the centurion is saying, you're not even worthy to come into my house, and I'm not even worthy to come see you. And it took me a while to understand this second part of this passage here. I'll admit, when I was growing up, it took me a while to figure this out. But then I became a leader, both in the Boy Scouts and then later in the Army. I became an Army officer myself. And it helped me to understand this passage. He says, "Just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man placed under authority, having soldiers under me. I say to this one, go, and he goes. I say to this one, come, and he comes. I say to this one, do this, and he does it." What the centurion is saying, he says, "Jesus, I know that you don't have to come to my house and actually physically lay hands on my servant and heal him. I know that all you have to do is say the word. All you have to do is give the order." When I was an Army officer, I was in charge originally, my first job, I was in charge of about 20 truck mechanics. I was the lieutenant of an automotive maintenance platoon. And I had about 20 truck mechanics and a couple of sergeants under my command. And the captain every day would say, "This is the priority in which we need to get the trucks fixed. This unit is going to be attacking tonight, so their trucks need to be fixed first. If they've got anything in there, then they need to be fixed first. This unit is being held in reserve. They may have to go, so we need their trucks fixed second. And then maybe, this unit is not doing anything, so hold theirs until last, after you've done all the others." So I would go to my sergeants, and I would tell my sergeants, "Okay, this is the order. This is what we need to get done today. So make sure this is what gets done." And I had very good sergeants, and I had very good men. And I knew that I did not have to go to the auto shop myself and actually watch them fix the trucks. Because I knew that once I gave the order to my sergeants would make sure that the men did their jobs. And then at the end of the day, the sergeants would report back to me, "This is what we got done today. We finished this, this, and this." So, being a military officer, I understood that I didn't have to go do the job myself. All I had to do was order that man to do it, and he would do it. And I would not have to stand over his shoulder and watch him do it. It would just be done. I could just say, "Go do this," and I had faith that it would get done. And that's what the centurion is showing here. He's saying, just like I order my men to do something, I have faith that they're going to do it. I don't have to have you, Jesus, come to my house and lay hands on my servant to heal him. All you have to do, I know, is give the order. All you have to do is say, "Servant, be healed," and he'll be healed. I've got that much faith. How much faith do you have? Do you have faith that when you pray, you know that what you pray is going to be done? Or do you just keep praying over and over and over for the same thing? Not that there's anything wrong with that. But when you pray that first time, do you have faith that it's going to be done? When you ask Jesus to do something, do you have enough faith like this centurion and say, "Jesus, I pray that you would do this, and I know that you will. Do you then live your life as if that prayer has already been answered? Now, this does not mean Jesus is going to do everything you ask him to do. Remember, when we pray, we need to pray in the will of God. We don't need to pray selfishly. We need to pray that God's will would be done. Because God's will does not always match up with our will. Remember, God knows everything a whole lot better than you do. God knows the big picture better than we do. God knows what is best for each person. So we need to pray that God will do what he thinks is best. But if the Holy Spirit is leading you to pray for something, then pray for it. And then live your life as if it's already answered. We need to have that kind of a faith. We need to have a faith that if we ask Jesus to do it, we know it's going to be done. We don't have to watch him do it. We don't have to continue to ask. Just have the faith that what you ask will be done. Let's finish now with looking at verses 9 and 10. It says, Jesus heard this and was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found so great a faith even in Israel. When those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant in good health. What Jesus says here should have put to shame all of the Jewish people who were around him. He says, I have not found anyone with so much faith even among all of the Israelites. This Roman has more faith than all of you Jewish people. This Roman is showing more trust in God than all of you Jewish people, is what Jesus is saying. This foreigner is teaching you how to pray. And it says when those friends who came to Jesus to tell him this, when they returned back to the house, they found the servant had already been healed. I believe in a parallel passage in another gospel, it says they asked at what time he was healed, and they found out it was the exact same time that they talked to Jesus. Jesus gave the order, and the order was carried out. Jesus said, servant, be healed, and the servant was healed. How is your faith? Do you have faith, first of all, to turn to Jesus when you have a need? There are things that we cannot do for ourselves. The centurion could not heal his servant himself. Do you have faith to turn to Jesus when you know you can't handle it yourself? And then secondly, do you have faith to trust Jesus to do the right thing? Do you pray and then know that what you prayed is going to be done? Or do you pray and then doubt? Do you have faith like the centurion? Next week, we're going to look at a similar case. We're going to look at the raising of Jairus' daughter. I would like to thank you all for continuing to watch this series. If you can, please go to the Patreon page and support it for as little as $5 a month. I've got some extra videos on there, some exclusive videos for people who do that. I have my first book on there right now, called Answering Darrow. It's a book about the Scopes trial that I wrote. It's available for free to everyone who signs up for the Patreon page. It's available for $3 to people who don't want to sign up. That's the minimum price. That's the lowest price that Patreon would let me put on it. So you might want to hold off actually buying it if you're not going to join the page, because I'm thinking about putting a couple of other books with it as a single package to make it worth the $3. But if you can, please help to support this ministry. There's some more equipment that I would like to be able to get so that I can start making some new and different videos. And I'll see you again next week. So thanks for watching.